Incredible moment revealed. Poor boy dances with paralyzed girl, transforming their lives unexpected. Jake stared at his reflection, the dim light of his bedroom casting shadows that mimicked the doubts swirling in his mind. The old wooden floorboards creaked under his quick movements, a rhythm he knew by heart. Dance was his escape, the only moment each day when the weight of his responsibilities slipped away, even if just for a heartbeat. But today was different. The looming performance with Lily, the girl who had once filled the room with the kind of energy he envied, was like a storm cloud overhead. What if it was all just a fantasy? He could already hear the whispers, feel the disapproval of those who thought a boy like him had no business mixing with someone from Lily's world. What if she faltered? What if everyone saw him as merely a charity case, the poor boy dancing with a paralyzed girl? His heart raced as he stared deep into his own eyes, pleading for courage. Guilt twisted tightly in his stomach as he remembered his mother, leaning heavily on the counter at the diner, serving meals day after day to keep their lives barely afloat. Meanwhile, he was here, preparing for something that could either elevate him or push him deeper into insecurities. He should be helping her, yet he couldn't shake the need to dance, the burning passion that pulled him toward Lily. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. As Jake returned his focus to the mirror, the intensity swelled inside him, intertwining determination and fear. What if he forgot the moves? What if Lily's spirit was quashed by the expectations descending upon them? He could see her face, the lingering shadows of her tragic past staining her vibrant spirit. Was it selfish to think they could pull off something beautiful when everything else felt so broken? Doubt seeped in through the cracks of their budding friendship. He was just a boy from a struggling home, trying to help a girl who lost everything. And yet, somehow, she inspired him. The memories of their laughter echoed, the soft beats of their rehearsals. The way she had looked at him with hope instead of pity felt like a tether pulling him forward. But what if they failed? The thought clawed at him. What of his mother's sacrifices? Would she even understand why he was escalating into this whirlwind of performance? Guilt mingled with ambition, leaving him at a standstill when he should be moving. With each passing moment, the countdown to showtime quickened, and the world outside faded into the background. Jake knew he was about to plunge into a turbulent sea of doubt, but there was no turning back. As the day finally approached and the lights dimmed, he felt the weight of everyone's anticipation. Would they be recognized, or merely defined by their differences? The curtain rising felt less like a beginning and more like a precipice. Could they withstand the overwhelming current of expectations, or would they be swept away in the tide of judgment before his solo could even begin? The music flickered to life, a heartbeat in the silent tension, and in that moment, everything was hanging in the balance. As the curtain rose, Jake's heart thundered in his chest, drowning out the initial notes of the music that wafted through the air. He stepped onto the stage, the performative light shifting his mood from doubt to a fragile exhilaration. The world around him blurred, and all he could focus on was Lily, seated in her wheelchair, her eyes alight with belief, a flickering flame amidst the uncertainty. They had rehearsed this moment countless times, yet the gravity of the performance rendered all practice trivial. His legs felt heavy, as if confined by invisible chains, but they began to move instinctively, weaving into their synchronized dance. With every step, he released a fragment of his anxiety, transforming it into fluid movements. He glanced at Lily, whose smile illuminated the stage, even as shadows loomed over his thoughts. Would they recognize the beauty of their connection, or would jeers and whispered judgments eclipse their artistry? Every twirl he executed resonated with his fear and hope, a desperate exploration of whether this performance could defy societal restraints. He saw the audience, their faces morphed into anxious masks, waiting for a sign that it was all okay, that they could transcend stigma through expression. Midway through, Jake faced a pivotal moment. He stumbled on a turn, his body momentarily betraying him. Panic surged within as the music continued to play, a relentless tide through which he was drowning. Onlookers shifted in their seats, and he felt a collective breath hold, judging the inadequacy of his movements. But from his peripheral vision, he noticed Lily's unwavering gaze, a sanctuary in the chaos. She had fought against insurmountable odds to be there, and through her presence he rekindled his focus. Determination ignited like a beacon within him. He leaned closer to her, harnessing every ounce of trust she had placed in him. Together they moved through the mishap, navigating the dance like a testament to resilience. Each shift in tempo now aligned with the unseen rhythm beating within them, a reminder of the battles they had already fought. As the crescendo of the music erupted, they reached the final pose, a freeze in time that felt like a shared victory. The audience erupted into applause, the sound washing over him, like a wave of relief. Yet, beyond the exhilaration, an unsettling thought lingered. Had this performance truly convinced them of worth, or was it simply theatrics, a fleeting moment of acceptance fading into reality? While the audience cheered, Jake stepped back, realizing that they had only just begun. This moment felt electric, but beneath the applause lay hidden anxieties, the question of what was next gnawing at him. This dance was not just a performance, it was a prologue to a more arduous journey. After exiting the stage, he found himself alone in the dimly lit corridor, the euphoria slowly receding. Laughter and applause still echoed in his mind, but dread crept in. What awaited him beyond the spotlight? This was just a brief escape. Would his life truly change, or would he return to the same relentless cycle, only with the scars of failure ever more painfully etched in his memory? The sensation of inadequacy loomed as brightly as the applause had, reminding him of the tenuous balance between dreams and reality. While the world celebrated their triumph, Jake knew that this was merely the spark, an embers barely ignited in a vast, unyielding forest of societal expectations and personal fears. As he took a deep breath, his thoughts spiraled into possibilities, uncertainty swirling with ambition. How could he build on this moment? What would it take to rise above the lingering self-doubt? In that silence, he resolved to confront the undercurrents of this newfound recognition, not just for himself, but for Lily too, who had given him the courage to dance. The real question now loomed larger than the applause. How would he face the next stage of his life, the demands of reality pressing on his shoulders like a winter chill? With his thoughts racing, Jake stepped back into the bustle of the world, where opportunity and risk intertwined like the very steps he had just danced, a journey anew waiting just beyond the horizon. Jake wandered through the backstage corridors, navigating the labyrinth of wires and discarded props, his heart a mix of adrenaline and unease. Each echo of applause reverberated in his mind, transforming into a cacophony of expectations. He had performed, he had danced, but now he stood on the precipice of uncertainty, grappling with what came next. With every second that passed, the immensity of his choices weighed heavily upon him. As he leaned against the cool wall, he steadied his breath, reflecting on the spectacle they had created. He visualized Lily, her laughter intertwined with the sound of the audience's appreciation. Yet that image was quickly overshadowed by the nagging thoughts of who he truly was, and what this performance meant beyond its immediate success. Was it enough simply to be marked by the thrill of the stage, or was there a deeper purpose awaiting exploration? He recalled his life before,
Muffled aspirations drowned in mundane routines, comfort wrapped tightly around him like a shroud. After the initial rush faded, Jake felt exposed. The rawness
of his vulnerabilities laid bare. Today, he had danced not only with Lily, but alongside his deepest fears, a confrontation that had birthed a spark within him. Now, he needed to fan those flames, cultivate a fire that would warm his future, not consume it. Jake resolved to revisit the studio, the small space where he had honed his craft, where he could feel the music pulse through him. He had once hesitated to embrace complications. Now they beckoned him to mature beyond the carefree dancer he once was. The notion of building something from his triumph gripped him with a sudden urgency. What if he could turn this fleeting moment into the foundation for something solid? As he stepped back into a world now brightened by new possibilities, Jake contacted a local community center that had shown interest in their performance. The thought of running a regular dance class struck a chord within him, a calling to share his journey with others and to empower individuals who felt confined. But now he found himself at a crossroads. Could he inspire others when he himself was still grappling with uncertainty? Conversations ensued, meetings with local charities and discussion forums buzzing in his mind. He could feel his initial vision, tackling stigma, building awareness, beginning to merge with actionable steps. Yet self-doubt lashed out viciously. Who was he to guide others when he struggled to navigate his own path? Days turned into weeks, and he found himself in a whirlwind of planning. While he drafted flyers and devised lesson plans, his determination wavered. He often found himself standing in front of the mirror, rehearsing the words he would say, each attempt layered with both passion and hesitation. What if he failed to reach them? What if the weight of expectations shadowed his intent? Nevertheless, he picked up the pieces of that moment on stage and began piecing together a more formidable vision, something vibrant, tangible. Then came an invitation, a community gathering aiming to spotlight local talents. They had heard of Jake's performance and wanted him to showcase his new class. The prospect thrilled him and terrified him in equal measure. This time, it wouldn't just be about the dance. It would be about his voice, his thoughts on crafting lives anew. Could he stand before an audience and share a message that mattered? As he paced his small apartment, the question took shape. How far was he willing to go to bridge his art and the people who needed it most? In those moments of contemplation, just beneath the surface, something primal stirred. It whispered that the true dance began here, between doubt and action, the intimacy of vulnerability and the force of creation. A presence was looming, urging him forward into some unknown territory. The time had come to face his fears, not just for himself, but for everyone who stood waiting for a guide, ready to step out of their shadows into a world of movement and connection. With his heart pounding, Jake took one last deep breath. The line had been drawn, and now was the moment to step boldly into that uncertain light once more. Jake could feel the energy of the upcoming showcase coursing through him, a current of mixed emotions that electrified his resolve. Each day leading up to the event offered a new challenge, a fresh set of hurdles that tested his commitment. The doubts mushroomed. Was this really what he wanted? Could he truly impact lives through his art? As he mulled over these internal conflicts, he channeled the noise into frantic preparation. He spent hours at the studio, music blaring through the speakers, guiding his movements as they fused with his thoughts. In every kick and turn, he sought clarity. His body became an extension of his psyche, each dance step a tentative negotiation with his fears. The mirrors reflected not just a dancer in motion, but a man at war with himself. Slowing down, he often paused to gaze into those reflective surfaces, searching for signs of the confidence he wished to unearth. Word by word, he crafted his message for the showcase, flipping over each point in his mind.
He would speak on vulnerability, the importance of connection, and how the act of sharing one's truth could illuminate paths for others. Repeatedly, he grappled with the legitimacy of his voice, questioning if the audience needed to hear his insights when he still stood on the precipice of self-discovery. What, after all, did he truly know? The pressure mounted as the date drew near. Jake's stomach churned with anticipation as he prepared his speech alongside videos of his dance routines. Beyond the choreography, he began to weave in the narrative of his life, the struggles and the realizations that had transpired since he first took a leap of faith on stage. He wanted his class, his lessons, to embody not just skill, but growth, a chance for self-exploration delivered through movement. Yet, the fear of confronting a live audience loomed larger than any fear he had encountered before. Would he be enough? The echoes of earlier performances, moments of applause now juxtaposed with silence, seeped into his thoughts. The prospect of sharing his vulnerabilities transformed from a daunting task into a pulsating drumbeat, reminding him time and again of the risk involved in being truly present. On the morning of the showcase, his palms clammy and his heart racing, Jake arrived at the venue, the energy palpable in the air. The room was bathed in warm lighting, a stark contrast to the swirling uncertainty within him. He closed his eyes, allowing the rhythmic beats of the music to resonate through him. It was a reminder that music was not merely sound, it was an integral part of his being. With every conversation he had during the run-up, his initial anxiety shifted ever so slightly toward anticipation. He was no longer just preparing to perform. He found himself in moments of connection with other artists, with individuals showcasing
their own narratives of struggle and triumph. This unearthed a strange sense of belonging, revealing snippets of his competency he had not recognized before. The ability to lead, to inspire, to forge new paths. The time came to stand in front of the audience. He felt the heat of their gazes, the weight of collective expectation grounding him solidly in the moment. They were not just there to see him dance, they were there for the stories he was about to unfold, the reminders that united them in shared humanity. As he stepped into the spotlight, the trembling in his chest morphed into a yearning, a desire to authentically lay bare his journey and invite everyone present to reconcile their individual narratives with movement. In that instant, an unexpected resolve ignited within him. No longer just Jake the dancer, he was now Jake the storyteller, ready to embrace whatever unfolded next. But just as he was about to speak, a shadow passed before him, and momentarily the future felt precariously uncertain. What had begun as a performance now stood at the edge of something deeper. He was about to discover that some stories don't just change the teller, but also the receiver. The underlying question reverberated in the silence. Would he dare to dance not just his story, but the stories waiting to be awakened all around him? Jake's breath caught in his throat as the shadow passed, a brief diversion pulling him from the depths of his thoughts. It wasn't until the silenced anticipation of the crowd clawed at his skin that he realized he had to embrace this moment. He had prepared extensively, yet as he confronted a sea of faces, he finally understood that this was less about performance and more about connection. His initial words stumbled from his lips, rooted in the uncertainty swirling within him. As he spoke, he consciously sought to tie his narratives of vulnerability to the audience's collective experience. He touched on his fears, the anxiety that nipped at his heels each time he stepped onto the stage, and how dance had become his escape and therapy. With every sentence, he transformed the stage into a confessional space, inviting the audience not just to listen, but to feel. Jake's flow improved as he leaned deeper into his vulnerabilities. Eyes widened as he recounted an incident from his past, the moment he had tried to fit in, to suppress the artist that burned inside. The laughter shifted to a hush. Suddenly, the walls of isolation he had experienced echoed loudly across the room.
With every gesture, he pulled them into his world, illuminating the power of struggle. Yet, just as the warmth of connection bloomed, a flash of doubt threatened to suffocate him. He felt the pull of the shadows again, particularly one lingering thought that gripped his heart. Was he truly worthy of this platform? The spotlight felt heavier now. The narrative he was weaving seemed to demand more than he thought he could.
Give. Inspiration required not just truth, but also the courage to remain open despite the looming fear of rejection. Suddenly, he felt compelled to dance. The urge surged within him, demanding expression beyond speech. What if movement could speak louder than words? With no conscious decision, he started to improvise, pulling his body into a dance that reflected his frenetic emotions. He spun, dove, and rose, intertwining vulnerability with grace. Each piece of choreography became a reflection of his internal conflict, a raw articulation of self-discovery and the desire to connect. The audience responded. Clapping and cheering broke through the tense air, urging him on. As the music threaded through the air, he began to feel different, untethered, liberated. For the first time, he noticed people nodding, some even moving to the rhythm, engaging in what felt like a collective heartbeat. It reaffirmed his belief that dance transcended languages, a universal means through which shared experiences could be articulated. Then, during a powerful moment of stillness that followed a crescendo, his heart sank as he locked eyes with someone near the front. A girl sat in a wheelchair, her face lit up with joy and tears mingling down her cheeks. In that instant, Jake realized she embodied his desire for connection. Suddenly, the energy surrounding them felt electric. She was not just a spectator, but a testament to the transformative power of creativity. For a brief moment, Jake saw his story reflected in her eyes. Her smile spoke of struggles and perseverance that mirrored his own. Without thinking, he reached out, inviting her to imagine dancing alongside him. It was a leap of faith that broke down the walls of distance between performer and audience, dancer and observer. As the final notes echoed and applause erupted, he sensed an unfamiliar feeling. His confidence began to take root in the depths of his being. Still, a question loomed over him. How would this newfound awareness shape his journey ahead? What pathways would emerge from this raw, shared experience? With his heart racing and the raw energy still coursing through him, Jake realized he stood on the brink of something entirely new. The audience had responded, not just to what he demonstrated, but also to the call for connection. What awaited him next was uncharted, a potential that hinted at deeper revelations yet to come. What other talents or truths, hidden just beyond his current understanding, would he uncover in the dance of life? As the final notes faded into a comfortable stillness, the exhilaration of the performance began to settle into Jake's bones. The applause echoed in his ears, a rhythmic reminder of the connection he had fostered. But amid the lingering thrill, another realization dawned on him. This moment was not the triumphant conclusion he had once imagined. Instead, it marked the beginning of a more profound journey, a quest propelled by connection and understanding. Walking off stage, his heart still racing, Jake felt a new type of energy surging within him. In the shadows, his thoughts danced around the experience he had just shared. Beneath the surface applause lay his urgent questions. What had propelled him to open up in such an authentic way? Why, after years of wrestling with his insecurities, had he chosen that moment to bridge the gap with the audience, especially with the girl who had captured his focus? His mind shifted into overdrive. Questions piled on top of each other. Synchronicities wrapped themselves in possibilities. Had the vulnerability that blossomed on stage revealed new avenues for him? He had used dance as a refuge, yet for the first time he understood it could also be a tool for connection, a medium capable of conveying deeper emotions that words often fell short of expressing.
Jake found himself in the backstage corridor, breathless, contemplating this change. He leaned against a wall, mindful of the reflected faces of his audience lingering still in his memory. And there they were, not just spectators, but co-creators of his narrative. Each clap and shout had come not only from admiration, but a recognition of the shared human experience. Joy intermingled with pain, triumph layered with struggle. In that instant, he realized that to truly evolve, he needed to explore this newfound sense of empowerment. What if he channeled this energy into his next endeavors? What steps would he need to take to elevate his craft beyond mere performance? Curiosity ignited a flame within him, urging him to seek additional opportunities to connect in this way. Perhaps he could lead workshops that emphasized vulnerable storytelling through dance, guiding others to find their voices in movement. Yet, as the excitement bubbled in his gut, so did the cynicism. Who was he to facilitate this connection? The familiar shadow of doubt resurfaced, whispering harsh truths about his qualification and expertise. Was he experienced enough to lead others, to dive into the depths of their experiences and ask them to share? Confronting these thoughts, he forced himself to breathe, reminding himself that growth stemmed from stepping into discomfort. Could he really take this leap? The thought alone was daunting, yet exhilarating. He closed his eyes and envisioned the faces of the audience he had just left. Each one carried their story, their struggles and dreams. What if he could help them express that through dance? The exhilaration was palpable, a tidal wave of conflicting emotions spilling forth, excitement, fear, and an insatiable desire for growth. He pushed away from the wall and made his way back to the still echoing auditorium. He needed to seize this momentum before it faded. As he emerged on stage once more, now alone in the empty space, a sense of determination settled in. He wanted to reach out, not just in performance, but in purpose. And then, as if the universe aligned, his gaze caught a glint of metal, a wheelchair abandoned near the stage. The girl's warmth returned to his memory, reigniting the energy of that shared moment. Within his mind, a vision sparked, a series of workshops that
blended movement, storytelling, and healing. Confronting the doubts creeping back in, Jake took a deep breath. The time had come to face his path and the shadows that had long followed him. He could amplify the power of connection, igniting a space for others to experience the same liberation he had found. But as he stood there, the weight of potential resting on his young shoulders, he realized that this was only the beginning. What challenges would he face as he ventured into this realm, and who might oppose his quest? The uncertainty loomed large, a thrilling enigma at the edge of his aspirations. Where would this journey truly lead him? The days that followed saw Jake tangled in a spiral of both inspiration and self-doubt. Each morning, he awoke with the lingering sensation of the applause, that fervent connection. Yet, as he prepared for the day, the gravity of his aspirations weighed heavily on him. What began as a simple performance had sparked a wildfire of ideas, each one demanding his attention and simultaneously reminding him of his inexperience. He found himself sketching plans for the workshops, his heart racing with excitement each time he jotted down notes on the potential curriculum. Strategies emerged. The focus would be on facilitating stories through movement, allowing participants to channel their personal journeys into their dances. It was ambitious, perhaps even naive, yet the thought that he could foster an environment where others could also experience liberation was undeniably intoxicating. But with each passing day, as potential loomed, so too did the veil of his own insecurities. Who would come to him for guidance? What could he, with his modest background and limited experience in teaching, truly offer? A nagging voice whispered that even the most powerful ideas might be lost without the right execution. Would anyone believe that a boy who had once wrestled with his own self-image could become a catalyst for others? Determined not to let these doubts define his path, Jake sought solace in the studio, where he honed his own craft in private.
The dance floor became his sanctuary, a realm of exploration where movements translated his internal struggles into a language that felt both natural and profound. Each session revealed new layers of his artistry. The physicality of dance allowed him to tap into emotions, grief, joy, fear, that sought expression beyond mere words. One afternoon, while lost in a choreography routine, he recalled the girl in the wheelchair, and a sudden thought struck him. Instead of just a general workshop, what if he tailored his approach for those facing challenges, whether physical or emotional? Such a focus could empower people who felt voiceless, just as the performance had uplifted him. With this new perspective, an idea broke through his uncertainty. A workshop specifically for those living with disabilities, allowing them to experience the freedom of movement in a supportive space. Imagining the first-hand struggles they must face sent a wave of empathy rushing through him. He could create a
platform for healing, using creativity to transcend limitations. Yet, with clarity also came fear of inadequacy. Would this be perceived as patronizing? Could he genuinely connect with individuals whose journeys were so different from his own? The myriad questions weighed on his mind like a ton of bricks. He envisioned the potential backlash from those who might doubt his intentions, people who might judge him for undertaking such a venture. As he deliberated, Jake remembered his own transformation on that stage. It had taken vulnerability and the audacity to express his innermost struggles. If he was to encourage others to embrace their narratives, he must face his fears head-on. It became a moral challenge, how to bridge his experiences with those of others, all while remaining rooted in humility. The air in the studio felt electric as he moved. With every turn, his determination solidified into a plan. He would reach out to local organizations that worked with individuals with disabilities, proposing collaborations. They could offer formal training or guidance, something he desperately needed. This step, though daunting, felt crucial for growth. But as Jake began to build these connections, he sensed tension building within himself. Was he truly prepared for the complexities of introducing such workshops to a broader audience? And what if those entrusted to guide him in this mission were met with skepticism? His emotions roiled as he contemplated the next phase of his journey. The need for connection was undeniable, but it also carried risks. His conviction pulsed beneath his skin, the tension rising to a crescendo. Would he confront these emerging challenges, or retreat into the safety of his comfort zone? As he finished his practice and prepared to leave the studio, he caught his reflection in the mirror. For the first time, the boy looking back wasn't just a dancer. He was a potential leader, ready to face the daunting world ahead. Yet, with resolve mingled with trepidation, a question lingered. Would he find the strength to not just share his journey, but also to honor those he aimed to uplift? Jake stepped outside, the studio door closing behind him, but the weight of his aspirations remained. What unexpected obstacles lay in wait, challenging his path to reveal the true power of connection? He took a deep breath, ready to find out. Jake's heart raced as he walked down the bustling street, the hum of city life intermingling with a symphony of emotions swirling within him. He felt the anticipation of what lay ahead, but also the familiar weight of apprehension. Each step felt like a declaration, a challenge to himself. He was going to make his vision a reality, no matter the obstacles. The first organization on his list was a local nonprofit that focused on programs for individuals with disabilities. Jake had researched their mission and eagerly read testimonials of past participants. However, as he approached the building, self-doubt surged again. What if his ideas weren't enough? What if they laughed at his desire? Would return to the nonprofit, not merely as a man with ideas, but as someone willing to learn and connect, ready to embrace the complexities entwined with each individual story. As the reality of his commitment dawned on him, he felt a mixture of excitement and trepidation. Would he truly have the emotional strength to navigate these waters? This was more than just a workshop now. It was a journey,
one that could lead to profound transformations, both for him and those he aimed to empower. But in that moment of clarity, another question circled his mind. How much of himself was he willing to risk to honor the authenticity of others? Tomorrow would determine whether Jake was ready to confront the heart of this challenge head-on. Jake woke early the next morning, a surge of urgency coursing through him as he prepared for his first day of volunteering. He donned a simple black t-shirt, a nod to the dancers he admired, and a pair of well-worn sneakers that had seen many hours spent in studios and rehearsals. Today, he was stepping into a new realm, one filled with potential and uncertainty. The idea of mingling with individuals who had faced limitations sparked equal parts enthusiasm and dread within him. Upon arriving at the nonprofit, he paused before entering, taking a deep breath to center himself. Just outside the door, he reflected on Marissa's advice. This could very well be the turning point for both him and the participants he aimed to assist. The duality of his mission, to teach and to learn, struck him. He wasn't just imparting wisdom, he was opening himself up to a world from which he had been sheltered. Inside, the space buzzed with life. Participants gathered in small groups, some chatting lightly, others focused on personal tasks. Jake was introduced to Carrie, a volunteer coordinator who wore a bright smile. "We're so glad to have you here. Why don't you start with the introduction circle? Just listen and then share your background." His heart raced. He had rehearsed his story countless times in his mind, but now vulnerability tugged at him, anxious thoughts with their icy grip. What would these individuals think of him? What if his experience paled in comparison to theirs? As the introductions began, each person shared insights into their lives. Some spoke of their challenges, while others celebrated their achievements. Jake's awareness sharpened. He realized he was not merely an observer, but a witness to courage. Each story resonated within him, pushing against his resolve to remain detached. He felt the heaviness of their experiences, the gravity of their journeys, and the resilience clamoring for recognition. When it was his turn, he hesitated, feeling the weight of emotional exposure. Should he reveal his motivation for being here? With a deep breath, he spoke. "My name is Jake. I've loved dance all my life, and I believe it can be a powerful means of expression and connection. I want to help, but I'm here to learn too." The honesty in his words ignited a flicker of respect within the group. They nodded knowingly, some smiling in encouragement. This moment marked a shift. He felt the unspoken bond of shared humanity, a reality that had once felt so distant. As the circle wrapped up, Carrie gathered everyone for a movement session. She invited them to explore creative expressions through simple motions. The participants, some with walkers, others in wheelchairs, demonstrated remarkable ingenuity. Their movement wasn't constrained by traditional definitions of dance. Instead, it transformed into an expression of their spirit. Jake watched in awe, inspired by their authenticity. Experimentation led to uninhibited laughter and joy, an exhilarating release of pent-up energy that surprised him. His face lit up with excitement. The creative process had its own language, one that transcended physical limitations. But amid the joy, Jake faced an internal struggle. His own identity as a dancer began to bubble to the surface. What do I really know about teaching? Can I really connect with them? These questions scrambled through his mind. During a break, he found himself seated next to a young woman named Leah, who had an infectious laugh that ignited warmth in his chest. They got talking, and without hesitation, she voiced a question that mirrored his self-doubt. "Jake, have you ever taught before? How do you think you can help us?" Her inquiry struck a nerve. He pondered his inclination to view his expertise as superior, realizing that perhaps teaching wasn't just sharing knowledge, but a collaborative journey. "Honestly, I'm just beginning to understand what it means to teach. I want to learn what works for each of you." Leah looked at her, her eyes wide and soulful. "That's the best way to start. We can shape this together." The sincerity in her response prompted Jake to confront the very real fear that loomed over him. Was he ready to commit to this collaborative ethos? As the session continued, he embraced the budding relationships, reveling in the possibilities unfolding around him. Would he have the strength to contribute meaningfully, not just for himself, but for those willing to share their experiences? Every moment was a stepping stone toward deeper understanding. As the day concluded, Jake walked away with a new clarity, a sense that he was part of something larger than just his vision. Yet the gnawing unease remained. He left the nonprofit filled with hope, but a question echoed insistently. How far could he push himself to foster a connection that truly respected and acknowledged the essence of every individual's journey? The next steps loomed, and with them the unresolved tension of whether he could navigate this journey authentically. Jake emerged from the nonprofit's building, the sun setting low on the horizon, casting a warm glow that felt inviting yet surreal. The day had challenged his perceptions and ignited a spark of determination deep within him. What had once been hesitance had transformed into an insatiable curiosity, pushing him beyond the
limits of his own experience. He had listened, learned, and connected, all crucial milestones, yet he sensed the deeper commitment awaiting him. Days turned into weeks as Jake delved deeper into the world of volunteering. Each session encompassed moments of tremendous growth, not just for the participants, but for himself. He embraced their stories, which were filled with humor, heartache, resilience, and joy. They informed his approach, guiding him to develop a program that addressed their unique perspectives on movement and expression. Hesitations he had initially carried faded gradually as he discovered his voice and confidence as a leader. Then came a turning point. The nonprofit hosted a community showcase. As he brainstormed how to structure the event, Jake understood that it would be about more than just showcasing performances. It was an opportunity to celebrate the spirit of the participants. Animation filled him. He envisioned each person stepping onto the stage, their stories highlighting the beauty of their individual journeys. In preparation, he worked hand in hand with Carrie and Leah to coordinate rehearsals. The atmosphere buzzed with energy, and Jake's commitment shone brightly. The participants' excitement for the impending showcase pushed him to refine not only their choreography, but also his understanding of their experiences. Finally, performance day arrived. Jake stood backstage, heart racing with the weight of expectation. Flashes of doubt danced across his mind, whispering the age-old melody of insecurity. Was he truly equipped to lead? The voices quieted as Leah stepped forward, her infectious spirit igniting camaraderie among the group. "Let's do this," she encouraged. And in that moment, Jake realized he wasn't just guiding. They were sharing the stage, crafting an experience that transcended mere performance. The lights dimmed, and applause erupted upon the participants' entry onto the stage. Jake watched as they expressed themselves freely, their movements a testament to their fierce spirits and resilience. Every kick, every spin symbolized growth beyond struggles. For Jake, the spectacle was a celebration of collaboration, a testament to the idea that dance was about connection. The finale approached, and as the participants invited Jake to join them for the closing number, uncertainty washed over him. But there was strength in their invitation, a mutual recognition. The music soared as they combined their movements, merging expressions of joy and freedom into a unified whole. As he surrendered to the rhythm, Jake felt liberated. He no longer danced alone. He danced as part of a shared narrative. The applause erupted louder than he could ever remember. In that moment, he recognized that their stories had intertwined, creating something larger than any of their individual journeys. The energy transformed into an unwavering acknowledgement of triumph. After the evening came to a close, Jake took a moment to reflect. No longer did he feel like the poor boy uncertain of his place. He had fully transformed into a facilitator, a bridge for voices that often went unheard. Validation surged within him as he received compliments and heartfelt thanks from participants and their families. As the applause faded and the stage lights dimmed, Jake stood firm, anchored in the laughter, tears, and shared moments. His journey was clearer than it had ever been. He was now equipped not only with artistic expression, but also with relational insights. He, too, had become a conduit for growth and inspiration. Stepping back into the world beyond the performance, Jake embraced the emerging future with solid confidence. The connecting lines he had drawn over weeks of challenges had established solid ground beneath his aspirations. He envisioned not just running workshops, but creating an inclusive movement that embraced all forms of storytelling through dance. In that quiet moment of clarity, Jake realized he was no longer just dancing. He was inspiring, leading, and creating space for expression. The weight of his past dissipated, replaced with a firm belief in the potential of future endeavors. This was not the end. This was just the beginning, the prologue to a story interwoven with many lives, each profound and transformative. He took a deep breath, ready for every opportunity that lay ahead. Now, more than ever, Jake felt the urgency to spread his journey. He knew that these stories deserved to resonate beyond the stage. They needed to evoke change and understanding. And so he readied himself to share it all, not only through dance, but through every conversation, every workshop, and every connection he made. You need to subscribe now to ensure you don't miss this incredible journey, continuing with exclusive emotional stories in our next chapter. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support for these inspiring stories. Comment below your reactions and theories about Jake's transformation. Let's have a conversation. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need a reminder of the power of resilience and connection. The time for inspiration is now. Don't wait even one more second to share.